Hey guys, my name is Matimio, and today's challenge, a lot of you, and I mean a lot, like almost 100, wanted me to use the F2000 with the 4x scope, the heavy barrel attachment, a flashlight, so I have a nice little beacon at the end of my weapon, no underbarrel attachment, and then in semi-automatic mode, so only one bullet is coming out of my weapon every single time I fire my rifle. And essentially, this is a sniper loadout. I've done this with other weapons similar, like the FAMAS, and I think one of the personal defense weapons in the game. And what makes it interesting and enjoyable is that it basically negates the benefits of these guns. Like, the F2000 clearly is not meant for long-range combat, but that's exactly what this setup is trying to allude to. It's got the 4x scope, it's got the heavy barrel for that increased accuracy, alongside in semi-automatic mode, so I can't take advantage of its higher rounds per minute. And so because of these disadvantages, I now have a weapon that is basically hindered in every single situation. And so what it requires me to do is basically outplay my enemy in every single situation. I have to go for headshots, I have to lead my target significantly, I have to compensate for that crazy amount of recoil, and there is a lot of it with the F2000, and it makes just for some highly entertaining yet frustrating gameplay. I do want to let you guys know real quickly though that if I sound a little weird, it is because I have a head cold. It's been going on for a couple of days now. I've been in bed, it's been awful. I was like, screw this, I want to make a video, and so if I sound a little bit different, I just want to let you guys know that's the reason why. And so the F2000 is a fun little weapon. It's not necessarily the best close encounter gun in the game because it has some very interesting stats, but it's got a high RPM. Its RPM comes in at 850 rounds per minute. It's got the standard damage model doing 25 damage per shot up close and then dropping off to 18 at long range, so very standard there. But where things get interesting is when we take a look at its recoil numbers. It's got a vertical recoil of 0.24, so sort of low for the assault rifles, but where it gets crazy is that it's horizontal and its left kick is 0.4 and its right is 0.5. But where things get even worse with the F2000, and especially for this setup, is its first shot recoil. It's got the highest first shot recoil out of all the assault rifles. I think there might be one other comparable, which would be the AEK, but its first shot recoil is 3. And so if you fire this weapon, or when you first pull down the trigger, it's going to kick significantly. And because I'm using this in semi-automatic mode, I'm always having to deal with that first shot recoil. And so you guys will notice throughout today's video, the weapon is just constantly bouncing in every single direction. And if it looks like I'm struggling, that's because I am. Like, because of that first shot, because of the horizontal recoil, just trying to be consistent with all of my shots was a little bit of a nightmare. It also has a very long reload time. I love the reload animation on this weapon. It looks iconic. I love the way that they bring the weapon up. It takes up half of your screen. It also makes for some very cool transitions, but it takes a very long time to go through that animation. Its short reload time isn't crazy, but it's definitely not good. It's going to take you 2.7 seconds to go through the entire animation, but its long is just ridiculous. Its long comes in at 3.9 seconds. That is almost 4 seconds to get through a reload animation, and that's going to get you killed a lot. The nice thing about this though is that because I am in semi-automatic mode, I didn't really have to deal with that lengthy reload time all that often, so that was one nice caveat of this challenge. But if you use the F2000 normally, because at a high RPM, you gotta be wary of that long reload time. You have to make sure there is a bullet left in the chamber, because if you don't, your pants are gonna be left down on the ground a lot, and it's probably gonna get you killed. And so hopefully it is becoming very apparent why the F2000 is not good with a sniper loadout. And honestly, I would say that the F2000 to begin with is not the best weapon in the game. Like, it's decent, it is a fun gun, but it just doesn't do anything really all that well. And so if you also add on a heavy barrel, which is increasing its recoil, put it in semi-automatic mode alongside the 4x scope, you have the combination and the recipe for a pretty disastrous weapon loadout. All that being said though, there were some moments during my play session where I was giddy like a little schoolgirl, and I was having a blast. Like, adrenaline was flowing through my system, and it was because I was forced to outplay my enemy. Like, there's this moment right here, for example. I'm playing on Dawnbreaker. I see a bunch of enemies pushing away from the A objective. They just captured it, and instead of being able to just take them out outright like I normally could have with the F2000, I have to play it smart. I closed the gap because who cares? I'm using the 4x scope. I'm not using this thing at a distance. I tried to slowly sneak up using the environment to my advantage, and then as they cross across the street. I pinpointed the target I wanted to go for, usually the guy in the back of the field, so that I'm not shooting in front of anyone, letting them know exactly where I am with my tracer darts, and then destroying each and every one of them. And when I was able to do that, and I was able to be consistent with my shots, I was getting headshots left and right and taking each of them down with this very hampered weapon setup, it makes for some of the most satisfying gameplay. Like, that right there is why I love this series so much. Like, putting myself at a disadvantage, having to outthink my enemy, having to outplay my enemy with the weapon, or with not being able to rely on the weapon that I'm using, it just makes it such an enjoyable gameplay experience, and why I love this so much. Another thing I loved about this challenge was surprisingly using the tactical light, the flashlight. You don't see many people using this attachment anymore, and that's probably for a good reason. It's like a beacon at the end of the barrel. It basically notifies the enemy exactly where you are if they're looking in your direction. It illuminates what's in front of you, and that's actually what I liked about it, because it just kind of looks cool when you're playing on these close encounter maps, but it doesn't do really anything for you. And a lot of people would much rather just not use any attachment at all because they don't want that beacon on the end of their rifle, or they would use the laser sight to increase their hipfire accuracy. And after using this for a while, it got me thinking, how could DICE increase the effectiveness of this accessory, but not making it so that it was blatantly overpowered like it was in the release of Battlefield 3? Because if you don't remember what it was like back in the day, at least in the previous title, it was flat out broken. If you were not using this accessory and you were playing on something like Operation Metro, or really on any map, if you were not using the flashlight and you went toe-to-toe with someone who was using the flashlight, you were at a huge disadvantage because they could see you and you couldn't see them because your entire screen was white because of the flashlight. And I know some people like that because they say that flashlights, or military flashlights, are very powerful and they will have that effect on you. For a gameplay experience, it's not what people are looking for. Like, when they're playing a first-person shooter, they usually want to be shooting at someone and not a giant white light in front of them. And that was basically what Battlefield 3 was in the early days. Like, it was really, really bad. And so it got me thinking, how could we make it so that it wasn't as blatantly overpowered as it was back in Battlefield 3, but at the same time, not as terrible or useless as it is in Battlefield 4? And the only thing I could think of was making it so that it functioned like a real-life flashlight. So if you were playing on a map that was very dimly lit, or if you were indoors and there wasn't any lights on, then it would cause your screen to get blinded. Like, if you were within maybe 5 meters, maybe not as bad as it was in Battlefield 3 because it was blatantly broken, but if you were within 5 meters of your enemy and there was no lights on, have it cause a blinding effect. But in the same instance, if you're playing on something like Caspian Border or a very bright map and you're within 5 meters of your enemy, have it do nothing to them. Maybe they can see that there's a flashlight at the end of the barrel, but that's it. Because you guys know, in the real world and the human body, if you're out in the open and it's very bright out, your pupil is going to shrink and it's not going to bring as much light in. And so a flashlight isn't going to have the same effect. And the reason why I say this is because this is basically how it didn't work in Battlefield 3. It didn't matter if you were playing on Operation Metro or if you're out in a very bright map. If you were within like 5 to 10 meters and it didn't matter how bright it was outside, it still blinded you all of the same. And so if DICE was somehow able to make the Frostbite engine work around this and identify if you were in a dimly lit area compared to a bright lit area, I think that would be one way to work around and make this attachment a little bit more viable on the battlefield. But I'd love to get your take on this. Is this something that you could see being a way to increase the effectiveness of the flashlight? Do you not want it to change at all? You like where it is right now? Or do you think it should be as bad as it was back in Battlefield 3? Let me know down below. But overall, this challenge was a lot of fun. Maybe it was just because I was going against players that didn't really know what they were doing. Maybe they were just having an off day. But working around the map in a way where I was able to think tactically, I was able to outplay my enemy, but at the same time getting headshots and lining up all of my shots consistently, it made for some of the most entertaining gameplay, and so I had a lot of fun with this. But that is about it for today's Terrible Weapon Challenge, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you have a setup that you would like me to try next, let me know down below in the comment section, and also make sure to thumbs up those recommendations. It makes it a little bit easier for me to know which ones you would like me to try next. But until tomorrow, have a good one, and take it easy.